It's 10 a.m. on Wednesday here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. Our top story this morning, the death toll is rising in Istanbul after yet another shocking terror attack in Turkey. This time, passengers in the country's biggest airport were the target. Let's get the latest details from our Hwang Ho-jun, who's on the line. Ho-jun?
Yeah, after a series of deadly explosions ripped through Istanbul's Ataturk International Airport Tuesday evening, reports on the number of deaths and casualties have been steadily rising amid the chaos and pandemonium since the attack. Less than an hour ago, Turkey's prime minister confirmed at least 36 people were killed, a number that is likely to rise. Another senior Turkish official says nearly 150 others were injured. At this moment, we know there were 3 bombers who exchanged gunfire with security guards and then detonated what are believed to be suicide vests. Turkey has been rocked by a series of terror attacks carried out by both ISIS and Kurdish militant separatists over the past year. But U.S. officials are saying this attack bears the hallmarks of the Islamic State militant group. No immediate claim of responsibility has been made, but local officials and media are also pointing the finger at ISIS. Although there weren't any Korean national carriers in the airport at the time of the blast, Korea's foreign ministry is scrambling to see if any Korean nationals were caught up in the attack. Located on the European side of Istanbul, Ataturk International Airport is the main airport people use when traveling in and out of Turkey, and it's the 3rd busiest airport in Europe. It has been considered a vulnerable target for some time, so the airport not only has X-ray scanners in the security checkpoints, but also in the entry to the terminal. And that's where the blast occurred. Back to you, Tia.
Thanks for that, Ho-jun. Now, the South Korean Prime Minister Hwang Kyo-won is set for talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing's Great Hall of the People today. Officials say they'll discuss cooperative measures against North Korea's recent missile launches and its ongoing nuclear program. Hwang and President Xi will also exchange ideas on ways to boost academic and cultural ties. After his schedule in Beijing ends this evening, Hwang will travel Shenyang, the last stop of his 5-day visit to China. Meanwhile, North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly gets underway today, a process widely seen as cementing Kim Jong-un's grip on power. The Assembly is North Korea's legislative body, and the session comes 50 days after a rare Workers' Party Congress last month. South Korea's Unification Ministry says today's convention will address the legislation and revision issues of the organizational structure and constitution, among other things. In particular, the event will be aimed at tightening Kim's rule. Experts predict he will take the title of chairman of the Central People's Committee, a position once held by his late grandfather and North Korea's founder, Kim Il-sung. North Korea's state-run media reports the assembly will also suggest goals for the country's 5-year economic development plan. European leaders have been meeting in Brussels to urge Britain to lay out its plans for leaving the EU as quickly as possible. A senior EU official says the legal mechanism to withdraw should be triggered as soon as Britain has a new prime minister. Park Jong-won has the details.
Amid tensions ahead of and during the summit, day 1 of the 2-day meeting revealed that both sides are poles apart. Speaking in Brussels on Tuesday, the British Prime Minister said he wanted a, quote, constructive divorce from the European Union.
I want that process to be as constructive as possible, and I hope the outcome can be as constructive as possible, because, of course, while we're leaving the European Union, we mustn't be turning our backs on Europe.
Emerging from the meeting, Mr. Cameron expressed regret over Britain's decision and said he failed to keep Britain and the EU together, even though he tried. EU leaders have been stepping up pressure, saying they want Britain to swiftly notify its departure by invoking Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty. They said that without it, they would not enter into talks, either formal or informal.
I would like to underline very, very clearly, without the notification from the UK, we will not start any negotiations on the divorce process or on future relations.
Britain has been hoping to put off the notification until after October or hold preliminary talks before it officially declares its departure. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says The EU won't allow Britain to cherry-pick the benefits during the negotiations process, which is expected to take 2 years, adding that the UK should not expect to abandon its duties while still getting privileges in a single market. Park Jung-hong, ARIRANG News.
And the world's financial markets are finally settling down after a post-Brexit rout. Let's start with the Korean markets that opened about an hour ago. The benchmark Kospi opened up 0.5% today at 1940 level. The tech-heavy Kosdaq was also up around 1% as markets began trading. This follows gains on U.S. and European markets overnight. All three major indexes on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, S&P 500, and the Nasdaq closed up as investors looked for bargains after the massive sell-off. European stocks also closed sharply higher on Tuesday, with Britain's FTSE 100 finishing up more than 2.5%. Germany's DAX ended up nearly 2%. Korea's business sentiment continues to remain sluggish, though. The Bank of Korea's Business Sentiment Index came in at 71 in June, the same as last month. A reading under 100 means pessimists outnumber optimists. The figure had been on an upward streak for 3 straight months since February, but the trend was short-lived as the government-led corporate overhaul program dampened business outlook. This as global demand, especially in China, remains subdued. The restructuring of Korea's shipping and shipbuilding industries is likely to result in massive layoffs. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. More updates coming up at noon, so stay tuned and goodbye for now.